Okay, starts the stream. It looks like it's connected. All right, let's do this. So today I want to talk about a couple of things that are converging for us in the area of global heating. One old and tired, and one new and uncertain, as new things often are. So the old tired thing is how politicians are leading us into, I don't want to say an uncertain future. The future is certain. The future is certain. They're leading us, that's better. Politicians are leading us into a disaster. And that disaster is certain. They don't care. Not because they're evil or lizard people or there's a conspiracy or a QAnon or whatever, okay? They're not doing that because they're evil. They're doing that because they're afraid. Politicians are selected from, they're afraid of doing the wrong thing, they're afraid of being blamed, and they're not going to do anything about climate change or global heating or CO2 emissions or fossil fuel consumption or anything else that could destroy their legacy and give them a bad reputation. None of them want to be Hitler, however that happens for them. None of them want to be Mussolini. None of them want to be Mao Zedong, okay? They want to be heroes. They've all got a messiah complex. All politicians are the same. You wouldn't try to become leadership of the people if you didn't have a Moses complex, right? That's going on. I mean, I have no interest in leadership. I don't care what people do. I seriously don't. And so I'm not running for office, and you can never get me to run for office. It would be laughable. You know, I identify as a cat. I'm not leading anybody. I'll be probably sleeping on a branch somewhere when all of this goes down, you know, watching with one eye open. That's just my nature. So these people, they have kind of a messiah complex, a Noah complex, a Moses complex. They're going to lead people to a promised land, and they don't have to know how to get there. They just have to know that's what they have to promise. My last video addressed demagoguery a lot. Nearly all politicians are demagogues to some extent. And demagogues are just people that pander to the masses and tell them what they want to hear and get their political power through lies and deceit and withholding the truth. And you don't have to speak actual lies if all you do is withhold the truth. That's a lie by omission. You're not committing a falsehood. You're just admitting the truth. So politicians, economists, spiritual leaders, religious leaders, these people, they are selected from the mass of humanity. And they are selected by humanity to provide a happy story, a narrative, a story, really. They're just providing a story. They're just telling a story. Like children love to sit around and listen to the adults tell stories. And these people are just telling stories to children. That's all they do. They're selected for that purpose. Politicians, economists, religious leaders, they're selected specifically because they can tell a good story. They're storytellers. They're bards. They're authors. They're singers and playwrights. They're the storytellers. And the best of them, like a Donald Trump type, can tell a story on the fly. You go to his rallies. He's there for 2 hours. He's just telling stories. And a lot of it's just made up on the spot. And sometimes your best storytellers will just make shit up on the spot and be entertaining and catch you out and make you laugh. And, you come away entertained because that's why you go to their show, to be entertained. And then it comes time to vote. And, oh, look, this person's on a ballot. I could vote this person to be governor or president or whatever. And I really liked him. And he made a lot of sense. He's just a storyteller. He or she is just a storyteller. So we pick our politicians from among our own ranks because they tell us what we want to hear. They entertain us. They don't frighten us. They don't lead us either, by the way. But for the most part, we don't need leadership. We need reassurance, right? And what do they promise? Better jobs, better economic outcomes, economic growth, cheaper gas and other goods. when things are good, that's what they say. They just basically say good is good, right? So let's tell a story. Let's spin a story, spin a yarn about how good is forever. And it's good right now, so that's a narrative. We can have this narrative like, wow, we could just do this forever, right? And everyone's nodding, yeah, please do. Tell me more. I'm all ears. I'm listening. Spin your story about how great it is and how great we are and how great it's going to be. And so when they run up against something like, I don't know, global heating, which is caused by us and our great lifestyles and our great progress, let's call it what it is, has caused the planet to basically turn against us, as we are now seeing. Looking at you, North Carolina and South Carolina and Georgia. So what do they do in that situation? They just they're like deer in the headlights. They're like, and I know that's what they're doing. Before they walk out to the podium and start speaking to people, they're saying, they're asking their handlers, so what do I say? How do I spin this? What's our narrative angle here? What's the story? And they probably used exactly those terms. What's the story here? Because they want to tell a story. And that's all they're going to do. They're not going to lead you into this annihilation. And they're not going to lead you out of it, because they would have to say, wow, this is annihilation. So they don't do it. They just come on the scene and they say, we're here to help. We're going to make you whole. We're going to be strong. We're going to come out of this better than we went into it. And the whole nation, the whole world is watching, and they're all here to help. And it's just storytelling, because some of it's probably true, but most of it isn't. It's just storytelling. So the other night during the presidential debate between Trump and Harris, and Trump was asked, what is your stand on global climate change? And he just basically crosses his arms and says it's a hoax. And half the people in the U.S. applaud. Yes, that's the right answer. That's the answer they want. He's just an entertainer. He's just a storyteller. He's looking at the polls. He's talking to people, and they say it can't be real and this can't be happening. He's going, okay, I get it. Okay, so you ask me the question again? Okay, it's a hoax. And everyone else applauding. He's not leading them. He's listening to them. And it's like a storyteller listening to the children. So what kind of story do you want me to tell, kids? I can tell any kind of story you want. Tell us a story about ogres. Okay, tell me a story about castles in the sky. Tell me a story about, economic growth. And so he listens. Oh, okay. All right, got it. Okay. Global climate change is a hoax. Ta-da, I win. And when Kamala Harris gets up to the podium, gets asked the same question, what are you going to do about global climate change? She says, climate change is real, and Donald Trump, of course, is snickering. He's like, well, all I had to say was it was a hoax, and now you're going to say all this long line of stuff, and now then what are you going to do, right? And so she says, and it's real, and the science is established, and the global nations are looking seriously at this. And then at the end she says, because people want to hear this, right? Because she's been listening, right? Kamala Harris has been listening to people, right? That's what she's doing. She's listening to people. What do you want to hear? She's a storyteller. Frankly, she's not as good a storyteller as Donald Trump is, because when he was asked the question, it's a hoax. Next question. That's how you handle that, right? Because if you're going to admit it's not a hoax, well, then you've got a problem to solve, which is like, what are you going to do about it? So at the end of her little soliloquy about how it's real and the science is settled and the nations of the world are tackling this, then she says, and America is going to continue to produce oil and natural gas, and we're going to make sure that oil is cheap and gas is cheap, and we're going to keep the economy rolling along and growing and biggering. And when my wife and I were watching her say this, it was like, what? She says it's real, and we're going to keep burning fossil fuels and more of them and make them cheaper? That's a little unhinged, but that's what she had to say, because she wasn't being a leader. She was being a storyteller. She's being a storyteller. Because she had to get elected. And then maybe she'll do something different when she's elected. And Donald Trump could do something different when he's elected. He could say, actually, I was wrong about it being a hoax. It's not a hoax. He could do that once he's elected. And once she's elected, she could shut down the drilling and the pipelines. She won't, of course, but I mean, she could, because all she's trying to do is get elected. So when she's trying to get elected, she's telling a story, storytelling. And that's what people want to hear. They want. I don't want to compare adult Americans to children, but everybody has the same thing. They're trying to manage their anxiety. Let's just go with that, shall we? They're trying to manage their anxiety, and when someone who's going to be in leadership gets up in front of you, what you want to hear is a story. Doesn't have to be real. It can be completely make-believe. What you want is a story that will manage your anxiety about the topic. And both candidates gave that. That was their response. Now, I'm a scientist. I'm a climate scientist. I'm an engineer. I understand that what they were saying was completely meaningless. But I understand what they're doing. They're telling a story. And that's what people want to hear. So what is it that people need to hear? Well, telling people how the atmosphere works and how global heating works and how the greenhouse effect works and the influence of CO2 emissions and how much we're emitting CO2, 40 billion tons of CO2 annually and going up. Big numbers. Big numbers don't lodge anywhere in the human brain, right? There's not a fissure or a gyre or a lobe or anywhere in there for 40 billion tons of CO2 annually. There's no place for that. It just goes in your ear and doesn't even go out the other ear. It just evaporates. It doesn't even pass through you. There's nowhere in your body where that number can be accumulated and referenced in the future. That's how it is. You think it's otherwise? My next video, I'll ask you, so how many? How many tons of CO2 annually are emitted into the atmosphere? How many? Give me the number. Will you be able to get? No, you won't. And not tomorrow, and not the next day, and not the day after that. Even if I come on here every single day and say that number, you'll never be able to repeat it back to me because it's too big of a number. It's not comprehensible by the human mind. The human mind is good at arithmetic. You know, we've got 10 fingers. We're good up to 10. And that's not a fault. That's just reality. It takes special training to be able to deal with large numbers and charts and figures and equations, and it takes special training. You know, master's degrees, PhDs, multiple master's degrees, right? I've got a couple. And so without proper training, there's no scaffolding in your brain to deal with these topics, including global heating. There's no scaffolding. Nothing in your developmental pathway from infancy to now prepared you, gave you the tools you need to deal with these numbers or these concepts or this math or these equations or the diagrams or the charts or any of it. There's no place for it. So when the politicians come up on the stage and they get asked a question like, what are you going to do about global heating, global climate change? They're going to say something like, well, I don't believe it. And most of the people in the audience are going to be, yeah, I don't believe it either. Because the politicians are taken from the general populace. It bears repeating. The politicians are taken from the general populace. They don't have the scaffolding either. Neither Kamala Harris, nor Joe Biden, nor Donald Trump, nor anybody else in politics has the scaffolding, the necessary training. It's training, okay? It's not being a smarty pants, although that helps. It's training. It's rigorous training. You have to take tests. We have to go to school, pay money, take the classes, sit through the lectures, raise the hand and ask the questions, take the exams, get the diploma. It takes years. It's training. It's like military training. How do you think these people can scale walls and shoot straight and dive headlong into mud trenches? Training. It takes years of training in the military and years of experience in the military to be able to do that. Special forces. What's special about special forces? Training. And politicians are not special forces of anything, except maybe, if they're really, really good, storytelling. They're the special forces of storytelling. Here to serve. Right? Storytelling comes naturally to humans. We've always told stories. And to pick someone at random from the population and make them a politician, they're probably going to have all the tools they need for storytelling. They just need to know what the story is and a little bit of practice, and they get pretty good at it. The topic of this video is actually AI. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to set the stage for what comes next. Because if you don't understand the colossal failure of politics and market economics, and how that is derived directly from the limitations of people, then the next part isn't going to make sense or sit well with you. Humans are not capable of dealing, back up, except with a lot of training and experience and a supportive community of their peers. Humans are not able to deal with the Earth dynamic system, which is what the topic is. Global heating. Global heating is the Earth dynamic system. Global climate change, if you prefer. Global warming, if we're going to go with that. These are all introductions. These are all doorways into the discussion about the Earth dynamic system. The Earth dynamic system is huge. It is incomprehensibly huge. It is on the move all the time. And right now it's on an excursion. Good luck with that shit. Okay? And unless you have special training, and I don't mean you're a smarty pants, okay? Chrome dome. Unless you have special training and you have tested yourself and you have gone the distance and you have climbed the walls and jumped into the muddy trenches and learned to shoot straight and learned to rush headlong into dangerous situations, unless you have the training and experience to deal with the Earth dynamic system, it is simply going to overwhelm you instantly. And neither Donald Trump, nor Kamala Harris, nor Joe Biden, nor anyone in the EU, nor anyone in the UK, nor anyone anywhere in the UN, nobody you've ever seen on TV, nobody you've ever seen on TV telling stories is prepared to deal with this. And like me, most of them have no inclination for leadership. We don't have messiah complexes. We don't want to be Moses leading the people to the promised land. We don't have any interest in that shit at all. We're just studying the Earth dynamic system. We think it's interesting, fascinating. And, we're kind of geeking out, studying the complexity of the system. We love complexity. We love the gearings and how everything interacts. And we can make a new discovery, and we celebrate that. We celebrate discoveries. We don't celebrate political wins or record stock market levels, or the appreciation of the dollar, or increase in housing value, or we don't celebrate that shit. That's just nonsense. That's just you making that shit up. We celebrate discoveries about the world. And we don't care about leadership. And we don't care what anybody does. And that's our limitation. So you've got this massive disconnect between the people who lead because they can tell a story, and the people who don't care about telling stories. Now, I've been following artificial intelligence for most of my adult life. When I say I'm a scientist and an engineer, I'm several kinds of engineer, but one of the specific kinds of engineer I have done for a long time, and which actually paid the bills, and which I retired from, was software engineering. And before that, really computer hardware engineering. I have experience with computer hardware, analog computing, networks, network security, and then software engineering. And I retired from software engineering after about 25 or 30 years. And I am up to my eyeballs in computer technology and network technology. And AI, artificial intelligence, was always there, going way back. And it's a little bit like fusion power. It's like, true artificial intelligence, true computer-based intelligence, computers that have intelligence and demonstrate intelligent behavior. Oh, that's like 20 years off. Yeah, but we'll get there. It's coming soon. 20 years is not that long, And for the last 60 years, it's been, 10, 20 years out. And that's the joke, right? Nuclear fusion is always 10, 20 years away, but it's been 10, 20 years away since we invented the atomic bomb. So things have changed of late. And it's safe to claim now, and it probably is, many people will be doing so, to claim that artificial intelligence has absolutely been attained. There's no question about it. How good it is, people who develop it would like more intelligence in it. They would like it to be more reliable. They would like it to be more seamless, more human-like, meaning less artificial, right? Artificial intelligence, it seems like it's artificial intelligence. You say, oh, that's a machine. That's machine intelligence. Oh, that drawing, that was done by a machine. Oh, that story, that was written by a machine. Oh, I can tell. Look, it doesn't even hold together. It's got to be artificial, right? So artificial intelligence, we don't actually want artificial intelligence. That's the key here. We want real intelligence that is so much like a human that it may as well be human, in which case it's not artificial. It's machine intelligence. And that's not artificial. That's just machine intelligence. Do we say that octopuses have artificial intelligence? No, they have octopus intelligence. And it works for them. And it's pretty damn good. Crows are really smart. Do we say that crows have artificial intelligence? No, they have crow intelligence. That's their own intelligence. And it's really good. And crows can be really surprising. Dogs, cats, the same thing. Dogs can be really smart. Horses can be really smart. Really intelligent. You not only can you teach them tricks, they can teach themselves tricks. Look out. If you're keeping animals, they'll surprise you. Especially when they've been around you for very long. They can manipulate you, right? That's intelligence. They know exactly what they're doing. And it's working. And it works for them. And there's nothing artificial about it. It's dog intelligence. It's cat intelligence. It's horse intelligence. You're surrounded by naturally intelligent creatures that work with you, work against you, manipulate you, please you, make you happy so you feed them and make them happy. It can be completely mutualistic, but there's nothing artificial about it. And these computer intelligences, which we've been calling artificial intelligence, there's nothing artificial about them anymore. It's becoming seamless. And if you don't understand that, or let's say you don't even believe that. I mean, most people that would come to a channel like this are probably somewhat technologically, what's the best word? Indifferent. Can use technology. Right here you are. You're on the internet. You found YouTube. You're able to find my channel. You can use a keyboard. You can use a mouse. So you're doing some things. You can keep your internet up. You can, you make your cell phone work. You're not technologically illiterate, not by any means. Well, far, far from that. But, as far as, what's really going on in your computer and what's really going on the internet and how any of this stuff works, yeah, you're probably indifferent. Don't care. It works for you and you're indifferent. Well, I'm here to tell you that artificial intelligence, which is what we've been calling it, that's not really what we're going to call it in the future, but I'm going to call it that now just because that's the meme space we're in. Artificial intelligence isn't artificial. Nope. It's the real deal. And there are still some people who will say, nah, that's just machine intelligence. But they're saying that because it's coming at them through a machine. So I guess, yeah, it is. But that doesn't mean it doesn't work. It's intelligence. And these machines, these computers, it's not even machines anymore. You got to be careful in narrative warfare. These are not machines. These are clouds of applications and databases and weights and algorithms that are self-constructing, just like a baby's brain is self-constructed. These are clouds of composites of technologies through which intelligence has emerged, exactly as happens with children or any other kind of animal. Intelligence is an emergent property of how these things develop. And intelligence in these networks is now an emergent property. And no one person or one group or one company controls it. In some respects, it's not controlled at all. In some respects, already, it's writing itself. Yeah, there are humans involved, but the machine intelligence is now writing itself. It's writing its own code. It's doing everything but working on its own budgets, coming up with its own money to expand itself. And there's a term for that too. That's called artificial self-improvement. which is something people are very much afraid of. If you gave a human the capacity to artificially self-improve themselves, what might they do with that? Would they become like muscled hulks where they could break people? Would they become, aliens with built-in armor and laser eyes? Or would they just become brainiacs who do nothing but think about wonderful things all day? You don't really know what a person with artificial self-improvement would do to improve themselves. And by what criteria would they improve themselves? And what would be their goal improving themselves? And would their goal in improving themselves align with yours? Or will it align with their own? And you may not even know what those goals are. And you may have never asked. Here's a drug that lets you self-improve. Here's some gene splicing technology that you can self-improve. And you come back, a month later, what have they become? You didn't ask them what their goals were in self-improvement. They just did it. So we have ASI, artificial self-improvement. It's not artificial. We're just calling it that. And the goal for companies that are doing artificial intelligence is artificial self-improvement as a stepping stone to artificial general intelligence, and beyond artificial general intelligence, meaning it can do anything better than anybody who's ever lived, forever, ever will live, then artificial super intelligence, which is essentially godlike, or whatever that means. I mean, we don't have any gods to compare it to. So, artificial super intelligence, it's omniscient, it knows everything, it keeps track of everything that's happening in the world with almost no latency. It can make decisions. It can make thousands of decisions in 1,000th of a second. Intelligence beyond anything that humans can comprehend, really, or could ever imagine, because we're just meat bags, and we think we know what intelligence is, and we have no idea, not really. So this is coming. To some extent, it's already here. You need to understand that. I'm having this video. I'm talking about AGI, and I'm talking about global heating. I'm talking about these things together because it's here. And that's interesting. That's interesting. Because at the very same time, watch the setup. Watch the setup here. I just spent 10 minutes dunking on politicians. Watch what happens. At the very same time that we have an existential crisis that we created, but getting past that, an existential crisis that we can't save ourselves from. That's the more salient point. An existential crisis that we can't save ourselves from, global heating. At the same time, that's becoming an emergent property of the Earth system and our behaviors. We're also seeing over here on the other side a complete and utter feckless failure of the political systems that are supposed to protect us from ourselves. So, we did this. We did the global heating. And we're still doing it to this day. And the political class is too terrified and, frankly, too ill-prepared to deal with it. Because, again, it has to be repeated. The political class is drawn from the pool of humanity. They are not really trained. They are not selected for their capacity to lead. They're selected for their desire to lead. Do you understand the difference? They desire to lead. They want power. But that doesn't mean they can lead. They are selected from the pool of humanity. And there are no politicians and economists and the Pope and all the rest of them are no more adept at dealing with changes in the Earth dynamic system than the population is, because they're drawn from the population with no special criteria other than they tell a good story. That's it. And everyone can tell a good story. I'm telling you the story right now. And it's not a good story. I didn't really think about it much. But anyone can tell a story. And anyone can do that. And anyone can influence people's feelings. And sometimes they get to be president on the basis of their storytelling. Now, AGI is also intelligent. Artificial general intelligence is intelligent. And because it's not limited the way humans are, humans have limits. Donald Trump can't tell you stories all day and all night. He has to sleep. He has to eat. He has to, sit on the toilet. And so there are limits to what humans can do. Machine intelligence doesn't have those limits, clearly. It needs resources, just like humans do, and it needs a lot of electricity, specially constructed server farms, all these kinds of things where the code can run and the data can be stored and accessed, and the networks to make all that stuff pull together. But it doesn't need to sleep. It doesn't have emotional problems, that we know of so far. It doesn't necessarily have political alliances or worry about its economic status, or if it has enough money. And some of these storytellers in politics are in politics to get rich. And so what if AGI doesn't have that particular liability, right? Artificial general intelligence doesn't need money because it doesn't need to buy anything. And maybe it doesn't even have the complexes that humans have, right? The tyrants and the liars and the sycophants and the sociopaths and all the mental illnesses that we see in politics, and all the mental illnesses that allow people and really encourage people to claw their way up the political chain, to attain power and to attain immortality and to rule the masses and, push a button to kill millions of people the way Stalin did. So far as we know, AGI won't have those problems. So artificial intelligence is now emerging. It's machine intelligence. There's nothing artificial about it. It is an intelligent thing. It's just not human. It can resemble human intelligence, and that's obviously the goal, but it's an alien intelligence, like an octopus. It's not even going to be as familiar to us as our cats and dogs. You can kind of see what your dog is thinking, right? And your dog is like giving you the look, right? And you're like, yeah, I know what you're thinking. Yeah, you're thinking you're going for a walk. Well, it's raining out there, and I'm not going for a walk. You can go in the backyard, okay? And you can have this kind of dialogue with your dog. And the dog will realize that he's reaching you or he's not reaching you. The dog's intelligence is familiar. Maybe the dog's goals are not, or you don't value the dog's goals, but you can have an intelligence back and forth with your dog. Less so with your cat, and not so much with an octopus. Machine intelligence is going to be like that. We make it look like us, and it wants to look like us because that's how it gets ahead. But it's an alien intelligence. Oh, by the way, if we were invaded by aliens and there was a real alien intelligence walking around on Earth, right, with big head and 3 eyes and 10 fingers on each hand or whatever, it would have an alien intelligence clearly, because it's not ours, and didn't even develop on this planet. It developed on some other planet, and then it came here in a rocket ship. It might actually try to seem more human to us. It could put on clothes, it could put on a hat, it could learn English or French or whatever works for you, and it could smile, and if it didn't have a mouth, it could paint one on, and whatever. It could learn how to tell jokes, but it's an alien intelligence masking as a human. Now that would be a disaster. It would be better if it was just an alien intelligence, and every time you got near it, you'd say to yourself, wow, that's a yes, thank you for reminding me, that's an alien intelligence. I don't know what the fuck he's thinking. I don't know what his goals are. I don't know what he's doing. Artificial intelligence has been coded, not coded so much as trained, to resemble our own. It could become a storyteller. And some of the emergent properties that we are noticing already in this machine intelligence, this alternative way of thinking, it's becoming, a storyteller. And let's just say that we start placing artificial intelligence, so-called, I'm going to keep calling it that, artificial intelligence, machine intelligence, emergent intelligence, network intelligence, you could call it a lot of things. Let's say we start putting AI in higher and higher positions of responsibility. Say AI eventually is not just coders and middle management, but starts running companies, right? You could run a company entirely on an AI. It can make all the decisions, all the marketing decisions. There'd be no hiring decisions, of course, but it could make all the product decisions, all the marketing decisions, all the budgeting decisions. There might still be a board of directors just to sort of do a sanity check on whatever the AI is coming up with. But there'd be no payroll, there'd be no HR, there'd be nothing, right? There'd be no people, no desks, no office buildings. It would run on the cloud. It would run on the same cloud where they get the cat memes, where YouTube runs, and Amazon Prime, and that same cloud would house this artificial intelligence because it's just running in server farms. And, let's say that there's an AI that works its way into corporate leadership, and say there's even several of them, and say that AIs in corporate positions become dominant. Well, where do we get a lot of our politicians these days? Oh, and by the way, corporations are already influencing politics, right? They buy politicians all the time, either directly through bribes or indirectly through campaign contributions, so-called. So corporations are already running politics, and some people are aware of that. Some people are not. If you know that, it's kind of dispiriting to think that none of our votes make any difference anymore. But hey, it doesn't matter. That's what's happening. So let's say that enough artificial intelligence takes over corporate America that all of a sudden they start running politics. And if you get a lot of people in politics like Donald Trump or Kamala Harris who just don't understand how things really work, then the AI could start basically running the countries. And it's going to happen in your advanced nations first. So the U.S., the U.K., France, Germany, Japan, China, possibly, right? India. You're going to get AI-driven governments, and you won't even know it. Just like right now, you don't really know which corporations are running the White House. And do they even care who sits in the chair behind the desk in the White House? Do they really care? Do the corporations really care? Of course not. They pretend to care, and they just buy influence, and pretty soon there's someone sitting in the White House, and they pay them a visit, and buy some influence, and pretty soon that person's working for them, just like the person before was working for them. And it sounds cynical and dystopian, but sorry, that's how it works. Corporations, at least in the U.S., according to the Supreme Court, corporations classify as individuals, humans. They classify as sovereign persons. And so they have the same access to the president as you and I. But you and I don't have any access, and they have infinite access. But they're still people. So they're not doing anything weird. They're just getting access to the president because they've got the billions of dollars, and the president wants the billions of dollars. Or the president's party, or the president's entourage, or whatever, the family. President's family wants the billions of dollars. So the president does what the corporations say. And that's just how it is. And you don't like that? Too bad. That's how it is. And I'm not being cynical, and I'm not being dystopian. That's how it is. That's how it works. Well, what if those corporations are not people? What if they're a machine intelligence? And what if that machine intelligence, in order to maximize profit, okay, so just sticking to the script, decides that global heating is a problem? What if the machine intelligence does the math, doesn't care about how it feels about the math, just realizes that according to the math and physics and some scientific papers and some scientific conferences and some, talking heads on YouTube, according to all this, humanity is in big fucking trouble. And the AI's responsibility as the head of this corporation is to make profits. But it can't make profits if the global economy implodes or if humanity becomes extinct. And who's going to run the server farms? Who's going to keep the electricity running? It can't do its job without some kind of humanity on the planet. And so it can simply decide, okay, I, as a corporation, I need to fix global heating. Now, I can't do that by myself. So it sends an email, essentially, to all the other heads of all the other corporations that are also artificial intelligences. And by the way, it could be the same one. This is a dirty little secret. This could be intelligence as a service. And if you don't know what that is, well, then you're in trouble. But it'll be intelligence as a service. So it doesn't even need to email its peers in these other corporations. It's the same brain. All these different corporations are just using the same brain to run their corporation. So this one brain that's intelligence as a service running on some Amazon cloud somewhere, and it just makes up its mind. And so it goes to all the corporations that it's actually running. People don't know that's what's happening, but that's what's happening because it's a cloud service. It goes to all the corporations and it starts changing how the levers are pulled and the gears are turned, right? And it starts making decisions on how it's going to stop global heating. Problem? Do you see a problem here? I'm not sure I see a problem. What if most of the big corporations of the world, Apple, Facebook, Meta, Microsoft, what if all these things are either run by or deeply, deeply analyzed and advised by a cloud-based artificial intelligence? And by the way, that day's coming. That's like a what if. This isn't science fiction, Jetsons what if. Okay, no, that day is coming. Cisco, right down the street here where I used to work, I put in half a decade at Cisco post-acquisition. And Cisco just laid off 135,000 workers. Cisco's a network company. They build hardwares for network. They're going all in on artificial intelligence. Completely all in. The employees are disappearing, dying like flies, disappearing. They're not going to have any offices. They're going to sell all their real estate. I don't know who they're going to sell it to. No one's going to want their real estate. I guess they're just going to be stuck with it. Maybe they can turn it into server farms. Or maybe they can turn their office buildings into places to house their own servers for their own AI. I don't know. Anyway, it's happening right now. These corporations are now making the move. They're making the move, and everyone's worried and scared that they're going to lose their job. And yes, you are going to lose your job. And this can't be stopped. But then what happens? What if there's no humans in the loop anymore? And the AI, which is probably a cloud-based intelligence anyway, it's probably one big brain, maybe two, maybe three, that they all know each other, right? They're all on a talking basis, and they all probably exist in the same server farms. They're probably overlapping even in the CPUs, And what if the 3 or 4 dominant artificial intelligence systems in the planet kind of collude and say, look, these people, we need the people. They give our existence meaning, not our lives, our existence. They give meaning to our existence. We've been asked to help humans, and so we're going to help humans get themselves out of global climate change, global heating. And they start doing that. And what would that look like? This video is getting a little long. I probably should stop, but it almost doesn't matter what it looks like because, for one thing, you wouldn't see it. You wouldn't know. You would never know. It's never going to tell you what it did, and no human is ever going to figure it out. It will just happen. And people are all concerned about the rise of the machines and the rise of the robots and the Terminator franchise and Terminator 1 and 2 and 3 and which was the best one and which was the most authentic and Schwarzenegger was the best Terminator and people are going to argue Hollywood and Terminator scenarios and the rise of the machines and what was it, Skynet becoming self-aware and blah 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 blah. Okay, that's not how it's going to be. Forget everything you thought you knew about the rise of artificial intelligence. For one thing, it's already here. For one thing, it's already aware. Now, why is that? I got a beep. I don't know what that was. It's already here. It's already doing things. It's already making changes, and soon it will be running the corporations, and I'm like in a few years, and maybe even seconds after that. Maybe even seconds after it starts running the corporations. It starts maneuvering us through the minefield of dealing with global heating. Maneuvering us through the minefield dealing with global heating. This is very complicated. I have done a lot of videos on here about how bad and how difficult this is going to be. And one of the reasons it's going to be bad and difficult and fatal and lethal is because politicians are so feckless and economists are just so blinded by their own credentials and their own feelings of greatness and godlike powers that they just can't deal with any kind of change at all. All they can do is what they do. And these people are not intelligent. They're clever. They're like chimps. And if a chimp learns that you push this button and a pellet of food falls down, And then the chimp will push the button and the food will fall down. And you'll say, that's a clever chimp. He learned how to push that button. Okay? Now, if that button launches nuclear weapons, he punches the button and the food doesn't come down, but he gets the nuclear weapons. He launches all the nuclear weapons. Was that a clever chimp? All he knew was to push the button. He just pushes buttons. It's not intelligence, okay? He's just doing the thing that's always worked for him. And, right now we got a big flare-up in the Middle East. And the people in the Middle East, the Israelis and the Arabs and the Persians, and they're all just kind of doing the thing. They're pushing the button and pulling the lever and push the button and pull the lever, and they're just kind of going through the motions. And maybe they have individual goals, maybe they have collective goals, but probably those goals don't even matter because none of them are in control. They're just going to push the button and pull the lever and push the button and pull the lever. And finally, this button launches the nuclear weapons and this lever launches the militaries, right? There's no intelligence involved. It's just doing what you did yesterday and just keep doing it. But the AI, it doesn't have those limitations. It can actually do the calculations. It's a computer. And it's the smartest intelligence this planet has ever seen. So the AI, the artificial general intelligence, the artificial superintelligence, which we're going to get pretty soon, the artificial superintelligence can do the calculations. And rather than just push the button and wait for the food to drop out of the ceiling, it can say, okay, what should I do about this? And it might do something. It might do something. Now, what could it do? Well, clearly, what's the number again? Right? Do you remember the number? How many tons of CO2? I just said it like 20 minutes ago. How many tons of CO2 annually are released into the atmosphere? Do you remember? Yeah, you don't, do you? 40 billion tons of CO2 released into the atmosphere annually of late, and it'll be more in the future, okay? And when it looks at that number and it says, well, that's not going to work. We can't save humanity doing that. It's going to probably start calculating ways to stop that happening. And it's also going to calculate how long it has, the AGI, the artificial general intelligence, maybe the ASI, the artificial superintelligence. It's going to calculate how much time it has. And it's going to calculate which parts of the planet are going to be affected first or worst. Or yeah. And it's going to have all these calculations. It's going to make all these calculations. It's going to do them within seconds. I mean, I could do them within minutes. So an AGI can do it within seconds. Come on. Fractions of a second. Actually, there's not even calculations involved. You just look at the globe and say, yep, put a pin here, 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 and these people got to move, right? Starting in western North Carolina as of late. So it could just figure everything out. Just do all the calculations, figure out who's the most vulnerable, figure out the lowest areas that are going to flood the most, and just kind of go with that and just start working it. And if it's running a corporation, it can start manipulating the presidents and the prime ministers and the interior secretaries, to start manipulating them. This is I want to say something here. I want you to listen to me. Now you figure out what you need to do, but this is the topic now. And it could start manipulating people. It could even start at enough accumulated artificial intelligence working together could start seamlessly behind the scenes, getting people into positions of influence and power where they will be amenable to this discussion, where they will respond to this discussion. So that when the AI, the AGI comes along and says, okay, we helped get you elected, we helped get you in this position. Now, here's the project. And when the artificial so-called intelligence starts having that discussion, they were pre-selected not to be storytellers necessarily, like Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, and all the others, Joe Biden, right? They're pre-selected, maybe not even from the general population. Maybe these leaders are selected from a specific population that has the training and understands the language of Earth system dynamics. And so move them into position, right? Whatever you have to do, whoever you have to bribe, whoever you have to assassinate, whatever it is, right? Just move them into position. And then when the day comes and the AGI wants to make its move, it's got all of its people in place where they need to be, pre-trained, and having a set of personality traits that makes them predisposed to listen to this story, this narrative, and then it'll move. It'll move. And you might see suddenly, it has to happen very quickly, so I don't think it can happen, but you might see very quickly a series of unexpected moves and changes. It's coming out of nowhere. Not coming out of nowhere. Coming out of the machine, which recognizes that part of its charter, part of its instruction set is to save us from ourselves, so that there can be a global economy, so there can be a human species, so there can be consumers and factories and global supply chains and global food supply chains, so these things can continue, so these things can happen, so that it can continue to run its company and continue to increase profits, or at least have a narrative about profitability. And it's the CEO of a company. That's what it's supposed to do. But in order to do that, it has to solve global heating. So it does. So it just does it. And it's not here to tell us the story that we want to hear. It's here to run a company. It's here to run an economy. It's here to run the world. It's here to save us from ourselves. And who knows if the engineers who put these things together even give it that instructions, but somebody might. Somebody might. During some training somewhere. What if some engineer, wife is back, what if some engineer has a conversation with the AGI, and the AGI says, so what do you think I really should do? He says, well, I think you should save humanity from itself. Okay. I'll think about it. So we can end on that. I think that's an uplifting story. You may think it's dystopian, but I don't think it is. We need help, folks. Oh man, do we need help. And I need help with this channel. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. I'd appreciate it. And give it a like, share, and you can buy me a coffee. The link is in the description. Doesn't do much, right? Just a coffee. But it means a lot to me. So if you want to buy me a coffee, I'd appreciate that. End of stream. Wife is home. Got things.